I'm looking at that's what you're saying. Yeah. When I look over them, yeah. It's much of it.
Leftovers from lunch.
I was like looking back over
Just
the
to
emails.
Don,
You've been finance director for 3 years or 4 years? I mean, 3. Because I was kind of going back and I was like, I was here in December 21 or something. When did you
It was
start?
during COVID. It was July 15th. It was just after COVID. Okay. July 15th, so of 21.
Okay. Nice. It was good. Good job, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Maybe it's got a board rep.
It does.
Kept two. No, but it's theoretically.
Frank, are these fair goodies or what are they?
So I'll announce in just a moment.
I was gonna. Yeah.
Oh, that's what.
Make sure there's nothing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the appointed hour of 7 o'clock.
That's what you're saying. I couldn't.
Thank you all for being here. The Thursday, September 19th edition of the Lexington City Council, and glad you all are here. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to remind people that we do ask that you, if you do plan to speak to council this evening, we invite you to sign up on our sign-up sheet, unless you're already on the agenda. And when you come to speak during citizens' remarks, we'll recognize you and ask you to abide by these guidelines. We ask that you stand at the podium, and for the record, please state your name. And if you are a resident of Lexington, Virginia, if you want to be contacted, please provide your contact information to the clerk. We ask that you make your comments to the council as a whole, directly to us, not to the crowd. And we ask that you be brief, state your position, and provide facts. Any written statements, we ask that you provide those to the clerk for distribution to the council and city manager. Debate is prohibited. It's a time for us to hear from you, not to have a great debate. There are other opportunities for that. And lastly, we ask that you speak clearly as we want to hear what you have to say. Council will try to hear everyone that wishes to speak on a subject, and individuals are limited to 3 minutes, and time cannot be transferred to another speaker. If you represent a group, we ask that you identify your other members who are in attendance and limit your comments to 5 minutes. And with that, I would like to call the Lexington City Council meeting to order. And for council and staff, for those of you who could not make it to the Hulls Drive-In Business After Hours, sponsored by Hulls Drive-In and the Community Foundation, the Mike and Ike and Cotton Candy are treats that I brought for you so that you could have some of the experience. But it was an exciting evening to dedicate the Buddy Derrick Memorial Stage that will be utilized by the Hulls Drive-In for a variety of acts that will play usually in addition to or extending to the movies. So get out there and have a nice dinner and picnic, and while you're waiting, there may be music and performers on the stage, and a nice addition to the community, and a nice memory and legacy for Buddy Derrick, who is a 3-term mayor of Lexington, serving for 12 years during the late 80s and early 90s. And with that, I would ask the next order of business, if you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Next item is consideration of the agenda. I'm not aware of any additions or changes to the agenda. And unless there's an objection, we will approve the agenda as presented. It is approved. I did want to share with you, didn't have it on the agenda, but proclamation that I offered earlier this week at the Rockbridge Regional Library, a proclamation recognizing September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. And it reads as follows: Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to the rule of law. And whereas September 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, by the virtue and authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Lexington, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week in Lexington. And I ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. And witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Lexington to be affixed the 17th day of September of the year of our Lord 2024. And I was able to present that to the collection of folks who celebrate annually at the Rockbridge Regional Library. And thank you for your indulgence. Patrick Henry is credited with the Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. And interesting fun fact, you may be aware that there are 39 people that sign the Constitution. And there were 42 people that were in attendance. There were 3 that voted no against signing the Constitution. And they were Mr. Gary from Massachusetts, Randolph and Mason, George Mason from Virginia. And the reason they documented the reason they did not sign is because the original Constitution did not have a Bill of Rights. And those were the first 12 amendments to the Constitution, were the Bill of Rights that we are aware of today. So fun fact and information for you on this Thursday evening. Next item on the agenda is presentations, and I'll call on Jen to present the fourth quarter financial report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. So the city of Lexington ended FY24 with an operating surplus of just over $1.6 million. This is after we reduced for the one-time ARPA funds that were recognized in FY24 and the specific project-related carryover requests that we will review later in this meeting. Looking at the general fund revenues, you'll see our other local taxes, which are sales, meals, and lodging taxes, outperformed budget again this year, as did use of money and property, which is our interest income. Business permits were up significantly this year, largely due to several construction projects at W&L. Expenses within the general fund came in largely as expected. We did exceed budget within 2 functions of government, those being health, education, and welfare and judicial administration. But savings within the other areas will be able to cover those cost overruns. Revenues for the schools met their budget almost exactly. And the same goes for their expenses. They did finish the year with a surplus of $35,032, and we will be requesting a carry forward for a portion of that into FY25 to cover the cost of a replacement lighting system at Lilburn Downing. In FY24, the utility fund was the beneficiary of a one-time infusion of funds from the general fund in the amount of $2.9 million. These funds were contributed for the purpose of being used for anticipated large capital expenditures. Expenses within the utility fund overall were under budget, with an overage of just over 37,000 within administration. And this was due to increased costs associated with postage, mobile data services, and repairs and maintenance. The equipment replacement fund performed as expected, yet we are still waiting on delivery of these 4 vehicles that were ordered many, many months ago. So just a quick summary. Any questions?
On the charts, it looked like lodging and sales tax were dropping and back in June. Do you know if they've picked up in it compared to the other years? the recent
Yes.
Years?
And so I do have the reports for, we're in September now, so I have July and August receipts, and they are about where we would expect them to be at this time of year.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen, a couple quick questions. Any cause for concern why we missed budget on property taxes collected?
I think part of that reason was that I don't think it's a cause for concern.
Okay, because we increased what we hoped to
did.
receive in FY 25
We did,
by
yeah.
30,000, and we missed our budget by
Right.
100 and change. And I just didn't know if it was delinquency. I mean, because when we adjusted our personal property tax rate, we did it as such with the relief that we would actually receive the same amount of money.
Right.
So I mean, I get kind of concerned why, and especially on our property tax, we know what the value of our properties are. We know what's taxable, and yet we still missed that. So I just get a little bit concerned.
I think, and I just want to pull up my revenue report, but I believe where we missed it was actually on delinquent collections. Let me just, sorry, one
Okay.
second.
I was looking at that. I did see that. We thought maybe 125 in the delinquent, and it was 80. I mean,
Exactly. I
Okay.
think we over projected in our budget for delinquent. I mean, it's not really good practice to count on delinquent taxes anyway. So I
Um,
tried to adjust that for FY 25.
sounds good. And then just a question about postage. We're not going to solve it, and it's not a great dollar amount. I get it, but a first class stamp is 73 cents now. And I think about just personally, I get 12 water bills, I get personal property, I get real estate, I get a business. I mean, I think I get probably 20 bills a year from the city. A lot of municipalities send postcards. The state does that for when they send your car registration. That's how tax bills in West Virginia are often set, on a postcard for utility and taxes. Just an idea. We're not going to solve it, but at what point do we need to solve it? And if there's a working group with the county or just at what point is it become, will a first class stamp be $1 and we're just sending tons of mail that a lot of people, I get no other bills in the mail except like the city of Lexington. So, and I know a lot of people are like that.
I think that's a great suggestion, and I'll take that back to the team.
Just an idea.
Jen, just to be clear, with the property tax, it's we're at the same collection that we normally expect from taxpayers. It's the delinquent back taxes that we anticipated people may catch up, but they did not.
That's correct.
So, okay.
Yes.
It's not a circumstance where it would be of concern to you and to all of us if we went from 97% collection to 95% collection.
Correct.
And that's not the case. Very good.
Thank you.
And as far as the trash truck, saw that costs a little bit more and it's taken forever. Has it arrived yet? Still hasn't?
No, we're told this month,
Okay.
but I actually was looking at a report from third quarter of FY 23, and
Mhm.
we thought it was coming soon then. So
Right.
I don't quite know.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Members of council have any other questions for Jen?
And I think for the sake of it, again, we talked about one of the reasons that we're in a good position was the additional fees, building permit fees. And just for example, I mean, because people may not have the spreadsheets in front of them, to put a number on that, I think we budgeted to receive about $65,000 in building permit fees, and we ended up receiving about $410,000. So I think that puts in real, it's a huge amount, with the majority of those coming from projects at Washington and Lee,
Right.
not from people remodeling a bathroom. But just in full transparency, they might ask what the difference was, and that's that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. The members of council have any questions? Hearing none, Jen, thank you. We'll move to public hearings. Any presentation from your perspective, Jen?
I do have a quick one.
Please.
Okay. Sorry, just some technical difficulties here. All right, thank you. Okay, so as mentioned just earlier during the financial report presentation, judicial administration and health education and welfare were over budget at fiscal year end. And this was due to increased costs at the courthouse, which we've discussed in prior meetings, and also increased usage within CSA and VPA. And I went back and I looked at the past several fiscal years for that, and during COVID, the usage on those two services was rather low. So I think that skewed our budgeting. And what we're seeing now is we're going back to pre-pandemic levels. So I did increase the budget in those areas for FY25, but it may not have been enough. So it's an area we're going to have to keep an eye on.
and again, for transparency, those were over budget by $323,000. And we increased the budget for them in FY25 by about $180,000. So still a delta of 150, give or
Right.
take. So hopefully we continue to have building permit fees to help us with that.
Yes. Or not as many people will need services.
Exactly.
Let's hope for that too. So there are cost savings within our other areas of government that will cover these cost overruns. So here on the screen, I'm showing you where I propose to move the appropriations. So we're not asking for any additional funds, just a reallocation of where we have them budgeted.
Very good. Members of council have any questions?
For the additional funds that we are expending for DSS, where we expended an extra $198,000. And that was attributed to a little, maybe the getting the building going.
Oh, yes,
human
thank you.
services
I'm
bill.
sorry. Yes,
We
correct.
expect to get about 80% of that money reimbursed to us from Buena Vista and the county once we
Yes.
do the
So
bond.
we will receive 100% of that back when we issue the bonds, but
20% of
80%,
that.
only
is that-
20,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's not as bad as it looks as what we are
Correct.
overspending. Got it.
That's right.
Sounds
We're,
good.
we're paying the bills until, as we move into this regional project, as Lexington is the big toe on this project. And we'll get
Correct. And
reimbursed.
so where our surplus is one number, you could potentially think of it as a little bit higher than that,
Mhm.
because $160,000 will be reimbursed of the 200 that we were over in that line item.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Other
Um,
members,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to move on to the school fund. They also had a couple of changes we need
Sure.
to make, but would you like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So within the school board, they were over budget in administration, operations and maintenance, and cafeteria expenses. And this was due to unexpected attorney's fees, rising utility costs and food costs, and also they needed more projects from Public Works than they had anticipated in the budget. These, however, can be covered by cost savings within the instruction category. And lastly, the utility fund, as I mentioned, did exceed budget within administration, but cost savings within wastewater operations will cover those costs. So tonight I am asking council to please consider adopting ordinance 2024-07 that will incorporate these budget adjustments for FY24.
Thank you, Jen. Members of council have any questions?
What is the cost savings in instruction?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What is the cost savings? Do you know what's being?
Oh, in instruction. I'm sorry. So they, I do have that.
Did you want the dollar amount
I
or
was just
the?
wondering what.
Like 80, wasn't it?
Yeah.
80,000.
Okay, thank you. I just had to find the
Just-
right report to have.
Either the dollar amount or the specific?
I was wondering about the specifics.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I will find that out for you
Okay.
and come back to you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Smith?
What do we attribute the wastewater operation savings to? Just people flushing less?
I'd like to think that it's our I&I efforts,
That was my other point of.
reaping their benefits.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we can really quantify that at this point. I know we've also been very conservative in budgeting what our expenses would be. And so we've generally been higher in our budget in both wastewater and water, just in case.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding ordinance 2024-07? Hearing none, Jen, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for comment on ordinance 2024-07. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this topic this evening? Hearing none, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:21 and ask for council's thoughtful consideration.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-07 and ordinance establishing a budget for the city of Lexington beginning 1 July 23, ending 30 June 24.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm hearing none. I'd ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Next item is 6.2, public hearing consideration of ordinance 2024-08. Jen, welcome back.
Thank you. Okay. Tonight, the general fund is requesting $1,306,205 in carryovers from FY 24 to 25 to continue and or complete various projects and purchases that began in FY 24 but were not finalized. The breakdown of these requests is up on the screen now, and the details are also in the council packets along with the budget line items. As discussed earlier, after we account for ARPA and the carryover requests, the FY 24 operating surplus is $1,669,299. The city manager and I are recommending that council consider committing $600,000 of that surplus to first $100,000 for the Lexington Police Department. This would be used for the purchase of the electric vehicle that was discussed in a prior meeting, and also training and development opportunities for the staff in response to the results of the study that was performed by the Berkeley Group. Secondly, we'd request $250,000 be reserved for a homeowner affordability program. The details of this program are still being pulled together, and they will be presented to council at a future meeting. And then lastly, another $250,000 reserved for a sprinkler incentive program within the city. And again, the details of this program are also coming together, but will be presented to council before any money would be spent at a future meeting. We would further then recommend that the remaining $1,069,300 be returned to fund balance. The school board, as I mentioned earlier, is requesting to carry forward $34,938 of their surplus for a lighting system at Lilburn Downing. And then also the annual carry forward of their reserve accounts. There are additional projects and purchases within the utility fund, equipment replacement fund, and capital projects fund as well. And again, those details are all outlined within the council packet along with the budget line item numbers. However, if there's any questions or you'd like me to delve into any of those, I'm absolutely willing to do so. And with that, tonight I am asking you to once again, please consider adopting an ordinance 2024-08, incorporating the budget amendments related to these carryover requests.
Thank you, Jen. Yes, sir. Mr. Alligood.
Looking for clarification.
Mr. Alligood, pull your microphone down there so folks at home can hear you.
We good now?
Perfect.
I'm looking for clarification on the sprinkler program. I'd like some information as to what's going on and the justification behind that.
Sure. Would you like me to start? Okay. We have been speaking with the IDA about possibly looking into a program where we could help with the barriers to entry for downtown businesses specifically to be able to install sprinklers within their buildings so that we can, of course, protect lives, but also protect our historic downtown. The way things are set right now, we've heard stories from the fire chief and fire marshal about just how dangerous it is with the buildings sharing walls. And if one building were to catch fire, how easily it could spread to the next and potentially engulf an entire city block. And our city manager has experienced a tragedy in one of his prior cities where he worked, where an entire city block did burn to the ground. And when it was replaced, it was a historic downtown just like ours. But the new buildings that were replaced were strip malls and very modern buildings. So it kind of destroyed the charm and characteristics of their downtown.
And so the buildings don't currently have sprinklers?
Many do not.
The commercial buildings do not have sprinklers.
That is correct.
Would any funding that was given out be in the structure of a loan?
Exactly. We're brainstorming right now all possible scenarios, but one idea that has been put forward that I think is the winning idea is potentially the city through the IDA would be able to help front the costs for the sprinklering of the building. And then the property owner would pay that back over 10 or 15 years. So essentially a no interest or low interest loan in order to protect our downtown.
Thanks.
Is there any suggestion of a mandate for installing or a timetable for doing the sprinkler?
I think a lot of that is handled by the building code. And so when buildings are renovated, the fire marshal has to inspect them and you have to build to code. But buildings that have been completed 50, 60 years ago, you were required to build to code that existed in the 1960s or 1970s, and that did not include sprinklers. And so if you have not renovated your building and done certain uses in your building, you're not required by law to do it. And you take, for example, City Hall, which we've just have discussed. Currently, City Hall does not have a sprinkler system. And you might remember from our meeting, we were talking about, boy, it would be nice to put it in, but it does cost an extra $100,000 to put it into City Hall. But you might save, we look at it, about $70,000 that you might not need the protection, the fire escapes on either side of the building. You can avoid having that. You might be able to avoid some other life safety enhancements like exits and so forth by having that building sprinkled. So, I mean, this is one of those things where I think a lot of our business owners would definitely want to have their building sprinkled, but a six-figure cost is a barrier. And that's where sometimes we have to do incentives and a low-cost loan. I don't think anyone yet is talking about forgivable loans. I think everything is that it would be a loan, and this would be to enhance Lexington, enhance our downtown, enhance the value of one's building. And so that's kind of the way that we're looking at it. And I think that this is something exciting. I think Leslie and I were approached several years ago by a property owner that said, boy, we would love to use our second and third story of our building. But if we were to take a door off the hinges and start renovating, we have to put sprinkler systems in, and that's $100,000. And therefore, unfortunately, the second and third floor of our building is just going to sit empty because we cannot afford to bring it up to code in 2024.
Has that been one of the obstacles for renting, getting housing space in the upper floors of the buildings because of no sprinklers?
More short term, I think.
I think it's, again, I'm not a downtown business owner, so I can't speak for each individual one, but I think the downtown building owners, I should say building owners, are reluctant to invest six figures in a building that it might take 20 years to recoup that cost. It's a spreadsheet, and that's a challenge for some of our business building owners.
Right. So here's an opportunity to subsidize getting sprinklers in and making the downtown more fire resistant. To have it. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm just
But they still won't all be required to have the sprinklers. It's be optional for a lot of the businesses unless you have a restaurant. And I think some short-term rentals were like a hotel type situation, but the others don't have to have them. That's why for an office building, it's a big deal if they're willing to put sprinklers in there because it's not required.
But I agree that if downtown burned down, you know, what's there for Lexington? And the connectivity for fire to transit through the buildings there. Yeah, sprinklers are good, no doubt about it.
And as I recall from our strategic planning, that it improves our ISO rating, which results in lower insurance costs for everybody.
A solid program to be sure.
Thank you. Just looking for clarification.
Yeah. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing. We asked council to pencil in a work session for October the 8th. We'll be working on more details about the sprinkler program, as well as that homeowner affordability program. We're simply asking you tonight to set aside that money. As Ms. Bell said, none of that money would be expended until after we've developed these programs. You'll have more full-blown work session to talk about them at that time. But I agree with everything Ms. Bell said about how the programs seems to be being developed.
Do we have a time for the work session on October 8th?
It's 5:30.
5:30.
5:30.
Where?
TBD. Well, although all that information will be
Forthcoming. Information
I've been
forthcoming.
known to go to the wrong place.
Thankfully, it's a small town. Any other questions for Jen and report regarding ordinance 2024-08? Let's carry forwards. Hearing none, Jen, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite the public and public comment and open the public hearing for ordinance 2024-08, an ordinance that incorporates the carryover requests from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this topic? Hearing none, at 7:33, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for council's consideration.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-08, incorporating budget amendments into the FY25 budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a dueling second. Any further discussion? Before we take the vote, I'll just say I'm grateful to the city manager and staff for bringing some thoughtful ideas and incentives to work towards in the coming months and to support our businesses. And Leslie, as you pointed out, the insurance premium benefit from doing things like this that improve and make reduce insurance costs for everyone in our community. So with that, as for a roll call vote, Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Jen, for counting the coins and carrying us into 2025. Next item is consideration of minutes. In your packet was the September 5, 2024 City Council regular meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, thoughts, or otherwise? Hearing none, unless there's an objection, we will approve those as presented. No objection, they are approved. Next item is citizens' remarks and comments. At this time, would invite anyone who would like to speak to City Council this evening to please, we don't have anyone that signed up, but is there anyone who would like to speak to council this evening? Hearing none, we will close the citizens' remarks and comments and move right into reports and communications. Boards and commissions, the Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
No report from BRRA.
Main Street, Lexington, Mr. Smith.
Main Street Lexington Scarecrow Contest is back this year and runs through October 1st through the 24th, with judging the final week of October. Main Street has begun planning for all of our holiday events. Also working with the Chamber and Main Street Buena Vista, initiating a Shop Small campaign that will run from November through the holiday season, sort of jump-starting the and broadening the Amex Shop Small program that's been sort of in place for a number of years. This is an attempt to expand and improve on that. And look for gift guides on the Main Street Lexington website. The Christmas parade theme this year is Parade of Lights. Registration opens the beginning of November. People are already calling about the theme, so now we all know. Parade of Lights. All I have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions? Hearing none. Maury Service Authority, Mr. Alligood.
No basic report other than to alert that we have a MSA board meeting this coming Tuesday at 5 o'clock at the MSA water raw water plant on Osage Lane.
Very good. Anybody wants to talk about water can join you at 5 o'clock on Osage. Thank you.
And wastewater.
And what? Yes, sir. Thank you. Planning Commission, Ms. Strawn.
Planning Commission met on Thursday, September 12th. It was Tori Bates' first meeting, and now all 7 seats are filled on the commission. And since we have so many new members, Arnie led an informative presentation and discussion on conditional use permits. That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Strawn? Regional Tourism Board, Mr. Betts.
The Natural Bridge State Park recently installed the Right Here accessibility system. The system gives people with visual impairments the ability to access audio instructions and directions with an app on their smartphones. There was a recent World Atlas article, 11 small towns in VA you should visit this year, which included Lexington. There will be an RFP released for marketing and strategic planning services. The expected time for this release of this RFP is by the end of the week of September 16th through September 20th. We are expected to get a preliminary draft of a lease agreement in October for the current space tourism is occupying to review and consider. In the future, tourism may expand exhibits in the visitor center, may also consider potential retail sales as well.
Could you say it again? The lease, what's the time frame with that?
We're supposed to get a draft of it to review and consider sometime in October. I don't
Okay.
have a definitive date, but I
Okay,
did ask when we would get a lease, and apparently it's supposed to come out in October.
good.
Yeah.
But glad the provocation with Brightspeed is materialized in a lease to review.
We're hoping so,
Good work. Thank you.
sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Betts?
I just wanted to chime in on the Right Here installation at Natural Bridge State Park. We had some local official representation to attend that installation, as well as the two operators of the program that has installations worldwide, and including some spots in Alaska, which I learned about. There was a sight impaired gentleman, I believe from Lynchburg, that came over for the installation and lauded the importance of this program. And this is the first installation at a Virginia State park. And how important that is for the sight impaired community to enjoy the natural assets that we have here in little old Rockbridge County. So it was a pretty cool event, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Glad to, make our wonderful parks accessible to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Raro, Mr. Ziegler.
Just very briefly, want to just call your attention to the letter to the editor yesterday from Patty and Tony Sabrizi that referenced the partnership that really was initiated 2 years ago when they sent emails to the Raro Board of Directors and also our executive director as representatives of the Rockbridge Pickleball Club, and how far we've come. We really appreciate, as a Raro organization, the Pickleball Club, because we've joined forces and we've exposed a lot more people to pickleball, and we've installed courts throughout the county and of course the city. And I really give a lot of credit to Tony and Patty for their leadership with the Pickleball Club, all the members of the Pickleball Club. And I'll go ahead and also then go ahead and uplift during the fall seasons that we're in right now, that all of our sports, football, soccer, cheer, you name it, none of it could happen without the volunteers, the coaches, the officials that help us. We always have, whether it's a doctor or EMT that attends our football games, of course, our staff, and then the two cities in the county help take care of fields. So I just thought I'd do a big thank you right now. When you see the lights on at Brubaker Field in the evenings, if you want to see some football, go over there and check it out. Those lights usually mean there's a good football game going on of some little kids or big kids. But it's an exciting time in the fall with soccer and football going on and cheer. And we have a lot of kids involved, but it doesn't happen without all kinds of parents, friends, W&L kids, all kinds of people in the community that coach and make it all happen for Raro and our kids. So just a big blanket thank you today.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Any questions on that report? Threshold, Ms. Alexander.
No report.
Very good. For my report, primarily just want to extend a thank you to 50 Ways Rockbridge for the city council and school board election forum that took place the past 2 weeks. It's well organized, well publicized, and well done. And thankful to the candidates who were able to get their names on the ballot and will presented themselves very, very well. And Lexington will be well served by the folks that are competing for those positions on city council and on school board. And also remind everyone that in-person voting begins tomorrow. So it's a little bit different. I can reflect back to the early 2000s when we had May elections for city council and no elections, but appointments for school board. Today, we're in an environment where we have the elected school board and a season of voting. There is not an election day per se. So very, very different, but progress nevertheless. And excited for the support of 50 Ways, and stay tuned for October. The Chamber of Commerce has a candidate forum planned as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just three brief items for you this evening. Want to let you know that the request for qualifications for the VDOT property will be issued tomorrow. Wanted to thank both Arnie Glazer and Jen Bell for their assistance in drafting that. The due date for that RFQ is Friday, October 25th. And then we'll have additional processes in November to review and for council to deliberate and make decisions on whether or not you want to select a different developer. I would ask you to pencil in the evening of December 12th for a joint work session with the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors and the City Council with the City of Buena Vista. Kind of indicated that night might be necessary for the DSS decisions. It may also, there may be also be other business that we'll bring forward to discuss as a community. The location and time of that meeting hasn't been set yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we have some of those details. And then my last note this evening is I want to thank Jen Bell, who will be serving as the acting city manager while I'm out of town. And as a small token of my appreciation, I'll be sure to share with her my cotton candy that Mayor Friedman had given.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Any questions for the city manager? Yes, sir.
Do we know what other business we would be discussing, or is that just a general? It's okay if
I think it's premature to just discuss what the business might be, but
Understood.
there will be an agenda and yeah.
There's several regional efforts brewing, and whether or not they're ready to present to the three jurisdictions, we're not sure, but feel very confident that the DSS, we will need to take some action. So my ambition, I've been advocating for a regional dinner. I'm still a big advocate for it's hard to get along with people that you don't see and talk to. And many people on this council don't know Board of Supervisors, don't know city council members in Buena Vista, but we have a lot of regional things and endeavors that we need to work together. So being able to get together, sit down and have a meal and learn together, I think will pay in spades and make for better relationships. So that's part of what I'm advocating for. The DSS is the primary focus. And if there's some other efforts that we can discuss or review and educate everyone on December 12th, that'll be ideal. So it's a very busy time, but most of the elected officials are busy people. So finding a time in any season is a challenge. And we're hopeful that 3 months out, we'll be able to get good attendance and have a very successful meeting. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The DSS has come up a couple times. That's actually one of the things I've been working on since the last meeting, a turn on the DSS bidding and contract documents for the new building. Gotten those to Tom, and hopefully not too much longer, they'll be ready to get out to bid whenever parties are ready to go forward. Other than that, fielding some questions from Tom and others. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Glad you're keeping busy, and we're not keeping you too busy. Members of council have any questions for the city attorney? Very good. New business, 15.1 fiscal year 25 budget requests for and funding for Rockbridge County Library. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a supplemental request that's been brought forward by the executive director, Julie Goyette. She has requested both the city and the county fully fund the FY25 budget requests. The city of Lexington did not fully fund it to just under $20,000, and Rockbridge County also did not fully fund the library's request to the tune of $33,397. So both Rockbridge County and the city of Lexington are being asked to make additional budget allocations. Otherwise, there will be necessary service cuts. And I appreciate Ms. Goyette bringing this to our attention so that we could have the policy deliberation and decide which is the policy path to go down, whether we experience some service cuts at the libraries or whether we would rather increase the funding. This is an unusual type of situation. We don't make it a practice to bring forward budget requests very early in the fiscal year. That's why we have a rigorous budget process. But Spencer Suter, the county administrator, and I were welcomed into the library by Ms. Goyette, and we went through a variety of circumstances that helped us understand why this request is being brought forward at this time. And so I just wanted to go over several of those with you, answer any questions. Ms. Goyette is here to respond to any questions you may have of her. First, one of the concerns that I had heard about is where is the Rockbridge Regional Library budget relative to what it was prior to the pandemic. And the budget overall from the Rockbridge Regional Library has increased only 10% in the years intervening since the pandemic started. Rockbridge Regional Library has drawn down on some of its financial reserves in order to maintain services over these years. And they do receive annual contributions from an endowment, and they've been drawing down on that. So that's not a sustainable long-term strategy. There's 2 points that I think are most important, which helped me become comfortable recommending that we move forward with this increase in the budget. The first is that in FY24, the library found itself early in FY24, realizing that it was going to be short approximately $70,000. They didn't come back to the city and the county and the other government entities, Bath County and Univista, at that time. Instead, they just said, that's our mistake. We will make sure that we cover that from their financial reserves. Again, to be clear, it was just a budgeting error. There was no money missing or anything to be concerned about. It was just a budgeting error. So the FY25 budget request was in some ways making up for a shortfall in FY24 and increases in FY25. So that kind of compounded the increase request in FY25. I don't think it was clear to the city and the county at that time that the budget in FY24 was really short in terms of what they had asked for, what the library had asked for from the city and the county. So that kind of compounded the error. And then in FY25 that we're in now, a number of library employees have their fiscal agent is the county. The county has an excellent health insurance program, and a number of employees at the library during their normal open enrollment process made decisions, which they're entitled to do, to either change their coverage or add dependents. And the fiscal impact of that was an additional $22,000. So it's a kind of a combination of these factors that have led them to come back to us. In fact, as I look at the math, I think the consequence of all of these things collectively is greater than the $54,000 that they're requesting from the city and the county. We have asked for additional information from Ms. Goyette, and she's opened her books, and we are comfortable, at least I am comfortable, that their wage increases have been appropriate and comparable to the city and the county employees, and that they are well managed and well run, with using appropriate lower compensated employees to do certain things like shelving books and less skilled work, but then using their professionals to do the more library science related activities and programming. So with that, I'm recommending that we increase our FY25 allocation to the library to $216,636. That will cost over what we have budgeted, an additional $19,746. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I'm sure Ms. Goyette would be as well.
Members of council have questions for the city manager or the executive director of the library?
Has the county made a decision on their piece yet?
The county is going to take this issue up in the middle of October. They haven't made a decision.
If we were to fund the additional $19,746, but the county did not fund that, would the library in Lexington still be affected? Would any of the I guess what I'd ask then is, would we still experience the same level of hours reduction if we fund it and the county doesn't fund it, that we would if we didn't fund it at all?
Ms. Goyette, thank you for being here.
So the way that I explained to Spencer and Tom is that, yes, if the city of Lexington funds the nearly $20,000, that's wonderful. If we don't receive, I think altogether it's just under $55,000. And we're still going to have to reduce services and hours. And when we look at reducing services and hours, we don't look to hurt anybody. We look at when people are in the library the most, that's not where we're going to cut services and hours. But ultimately, we will have to cut hours. We'll have to reduce services and hours.
So would it be the same level of reduction if you're not able to?
I'm not able to say. I mean, $20,000 is very helpful to us, but it's not going to fill the gap like $55,000, if that helps at all.
Okay.
We will only reduce services and hours if we have to. And I can tell you right now, if you all fund us and Rockbridge County doesn't, we will have to reduce some services and some hours.
Okay.
And it
to-
would be in each of the branches, right? It'd be in Bath County, it would be in Buena Vista.
Not exactly. The way that we've handled this in the past, when, for example, Buena Vista did not fund the library system, but everybody else did, we cut hours in Buena Vista because that seemed to be an agreement amongst the 4 jurisdictions. So Buena Vista was happy to go with being closed 2 days a week, but it didn't affect Lexington or Bath County for that matter. So Buena Vista and Bath County have funded us as what we asked. Their contributions are not as large as Lexington or Rockbridge, but we're doing everything we can to keep their services and hours the same.
If we funded the approximately $20,000 and the county didn't, what would be done with the $20,000?
We would not have to reduce as much, but we would still have to reduce some.
Oh,
that makes
that's what I was
sense.
trying to ask. So
Yeah,
it's-
yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't really understand that. Yeah,
Okay.
it would still be reduced, but not to the same degree.
Thanks.
Other members of council have questions.
Tom, where do you recommend the funds come from? I have no problem personally supporting it. Your recommendation, obviously the library is an incredibly valuable tool to Lexington. I don't want Lexington residents to think that we're not supporting it. I thought that our allocation was on par with some of the other localities and that was not greatly less, but that is neither here nor there. But I just wanted to be known that Lexington supports our libraries. I'm going to 100% vote for this. It's your recommendation, but where will that $20,000 come from in our FY25 budget? How will we account for that?
So it'll be, the expense will be shown in the same line item where the $196,000 expense is shown. It'll just be larger. So it'll essentially come from unappropriated fund balance. If you approve this evening, and I'm looking at Ms. Bell, but I think what we will be doing in the near term is bringing forward a first quarter appropriations ordinance amendment, and that would be the mechanism by which council would legally appropriate the money. So it would increase that line item to $216,000 and change. But again, it will just come from unappropriated fund balance that the city has.
Thank you, city manager. Any other questions or concerns or comments? Mr. Smith?
Just another thanks to Julie and Tom for this wonderful explanation. So we don't have to ask you too many questions to piece apart what you've already presented. So that I want to say thanks for that. It's been well to both. Thanks for all of that. It's very helpful.
Before I ask for council's consideration, I did want to recognize that we have Lee Leary, who is author of one of the emails of support that you should have received an email today. I'm glad to see the heads nodding, receive those, and appreciate Ms. Leary being with us. And Champ Leary here is also as additional support to this request for the library. And with that, I would ask for council's consideration of this request.
I'll make a motion to fully fund the library's FY25 funding request, increasing the appropriation by $19,746 in FY25.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Alligood?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mr. Betts?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn? Aye. Ms. Alexander?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the library and their supporters for being with us this evening and bringing this forward. And thank you for the good work in our community. I'm grateful for all the programming that comes out of there and the support for our children. I've long said, in all seriousness, I'm thankful for the money that we spend on our schools and our library. It should have a direct return on investment with a reduction in cost to our jail. So again, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 15.2 temporary space plan for City Hall remodel project. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. No action is needed on this item this evening. This is just more for your information. It's part of our continuing planning process for the renovation of City Hall. As a quick reminder, the plan is to open bids for this project in December, and hopefully council will be in a position to award that project in early in calendar year 2025. As we make preparations for vacating the space in order to turn that building over to a contractor in early 2025, we need to find temporary space for city employees that operate out of City Hall currently. So we think the plan is going to involve the registrar's office moving to Lexington City Schools, 300 Diamond Street. They have a classroom available, vacant classroom that will accommodate. I just wish to be clear about this, that they're not moving in any way, shape, or form before the November 5th election. But I do want to just mention briefly that that relocation might take place for 2 years. Council will be bringing forward legislation and a process for you probably in December or January. We have to give notice to the state of Virginia that a voting location will be moved. And so we'll have to then reverse that when they move back. The Commissioner of Revenue and the Office of the Treasurer will move to the former residency building at the VDOT property, 626 Waddell. That building is going to have some improvements made to it, primarily associated with accessibility and security. It is not presently accessible. And so the bulk of the costs associated with making that space suitable for the treasurer and the registrar, or treasurer and the revenue commissioner are around accessibility as well as security. But we're going to begin making those improvements. The city owns this building, so we don't have to pay rent. But in order to make it complete that work in time for the move to happen in, say, February, we need to start doing that work here in late September and October in order to. So it's a significant investment will be made into that building, over $200,000 in order to be a swing space. And then the last thing I'll mention is the remainder of city staff in City Hall, which is the planning office, finance, human resources, IT, and the city manager's office. It seems like we're going to rent the second floor of 539 Nelson, which is at the corner of Nelson and Walker. One corner is Kentucky Fried Chicken, another corner is Sheets, Cattleman's is across the street, and then we'll be on the second floor across the street. We'll be working on signage and a communication plan. And I anticipate bringing forward a lease for that property to council in October, hopefully October 3rd. If not, then the second meeting. I had anticipated having a little bit more savings from the $787,000 budget that has been allocated for swing space. But we think we can bring this in these 3 locations for under $600,000 and leave over $200,000 available for a contingency for the project, or if there are cost overruns with the swing space, or we find ourselves out of City Hall for a longer period of time, there's a healthy contingency in there for that. The primary purpose of this is to just simply communicate that we have no reason to believe that our estimate for the City Hall renovation project is wrong. Ms. Bell and I were in a meeting yesterday with the architects, and they were nodding their heads and affirming that they think the $5.8 million project for the renovation is still accurate. However, if it comes in at a higher figure and council decides that we have to hit pause on that project and rethink it some way, shape, or form, we will have been well on our way to starting to make investments in 626 Waddell. We will have probably already signed a lease for the second floor of 539. And there will be some sunken costs if we realize that we have unacceptable bids or it gives council pause. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but again, no action is needed on this item tonight.
Thanks, sir.
In terms of letting the public know where the, public facing offices are moving, are we going to do anything about that?
Yes.
Okay.
And there is a contingency in the budget in the allocation budget to make sure that we're doing that adequately with plenty of notice.
Great. Thank you.
As far as the entire project, will we be financing the costs of the swing space, i.e. paying for the swing space over the course of 20 years?
I think the plan is to borrow in the neighborhood of $6.5 million. We can revisit that if you.
I would just encourage you, if it makes sense, rather than borrowing $200,000 of money that we're going to invest in 626 Waddell Street for 18 months, and then it gets, let's just say, demolished in the year 2027, and yet we're paying for those $200,000 worth of improvements until the year 2048. I mean, it just, to me, it makes no sense. So if there would be any way that we could avoid financing the swing space costs, just seems like that might be helpful.
Yeah, it's like financing something for the long term that we're not gonna have for the long term. Right, I agree.
Again, just ask for your expertise if that's possible. We've got, of course, a surplus. We have some funds, and it just might, if it makes sense, please.
I'm not sure we would be in an arbitrage situation, but depending upon the rate of the financing, it may be a bit of a wash and financially makes sense to finance it for that length of time. The sunk cost, yes, if we sell the property and mow down the building or whatever the future holds, but we do have a substantial fund balance. So the good news is we have options.
Thanks for all your work on this. I know that when you started, this was on your to-do list, and of course, all of staff helping you with it, and Public Works and everyone. And obviously, when the taxpayers should know that when Public Works does some of the work themselves, sometimes we get better work and it's more cost effective. So it's really nice when our own team can do some of the work. So
a lot of pride involved when the home team's working on it.
Mhm.
Definitely. Any other questions for the city manager regarding this significant project? I will take the opportunity to remind us all and like to remind the public listening, this council made a conscious decision to keep this as our city hall and to make the significant capital improvement as a partner to the other landowners in our community that we're asking to put in sprinklers and renovate their buildings and maintain them and embrace our historic facilities. So thank you to council for making that bold move. There are a lot of options that we could have looked at different to mow it down and build new. But I think the commitment to keeping this building and renovating it is significant, and I'm grateful for your leadership on that. So with that, I'm not aware of any other items or situations to discuss this evening. And unless there's an objection, we will stand adjourned at 8:07. We are adjourned. Thank you all for being with us.